Here, welcome to Community United Church of Christ. You are welcome here, and I really mean that. Welcome to our wonderful church. Journey into Advent is a yearly tradition for our ministry, community. It's something that we do every year. Does anybody know how many years we've done it?
I've been doing it for about 10.
At least 10 years.
Much longer.
Much longer than that.
Much longer than that. It's an essential element of our ministry, and it is as dependable a part of the Christian year for us as Pentecost or Easter Sunday. It's meaningful for us because we know that Advent is a time of waiting, and therefore in our spiritual life, a time of deep thought and consideration. And so journeying into Advent is our opportunity to get the ball rolling pretty strongly for the Advent season. Thinking about the mysteries, the history that we share as Christians and spiritual people, the life of two married people and the eventual birth of the Son. Julia Penner-Zook has put the sum of herself into the preparations of this weekend, and I think that we are all going to be very fortunate receivers of that effort. So I invite you please to open your heart, especially to open your mind, and join us for a thoughtful and very meaningful weekend. Would you please join me in an attitude of prayer? Good and gracious God, you've given everything to us that you've thought to give, and we are grateful to you. We acknowledge in this moment here in our church that there are people suffering all over the world, including in our own communities. God, we pray that you would build barriers. That you would replace barriers with bridges. That you would help us to find our center in joy. That you would open our hearts. That you would open our minds. That you would establish your kingdom on earth, and that you would use us to create it. We're so grateful to you for the many wonderful things that we experience every day. We pray that you would help us to lighten the load of each person living on earth who will come after us also. We pray that you would bless the music and the beautiful photography and the beautiful words which we are about to receive. Let there be peace on earth and goodwill between all people. Amen. Julia.
Good evening. Good evening. It's great to see you tonight. I'm really thankful for every one of you. I'm very delighted to have these two guests with me tonight. It would be much more boring if they weren't here. So I'm delighted. Jenny Revere, pianist, and Stacy Rose, photographer. So it's going to be a collaboration. Looking forward to it. So as EJ has already mentioned, Advent is a time of waiting. As it relates to the Christian calendar and the celebration of Christmas, it's a looking forward. It's anticipating. Something is nearing. So that's what we want to talk about today. We aren't very good at waiting, at the best of times, and definitely not during the holidays, because there's so many things to do. So when the holidays come, it seems like things go more quickly, and we have more demands and expectations. And those expectations can sometimes be daunting. And so we need this time of silence. Advent also, in the Northern Hemisphere, falls at the time of the winter solstice. So it's the darkest time of the year. And this dark time gives us an opportunity then to reflect on what has been and what is to come. We're going to look at three women tonight who encountered God in a very special way, and I think it's because it was in the dark. It wouldn't have happened the same in the light. Those women are Hagar or Hajar of the Old Testament Hebrew Scriptures, as well as the Muslim writings. Mary Magdalene, who was a prominent woman of faith during the time that Jesus was on earth. and then married another Jesus. All of them unique, and all of them experiencing God in unique ways. So take a deep breath, sit as comfortably as you can, wherever you are, and enter in with us while it is yet dark. The desert. Hagar, or Hajar. Who is she? We find a record of her in the sacred writings of all three monotheistic religions, the Jewish, Muslim, and Christian faiths. Despite being depicted very differently in our various faiths, Hagar, or Hajar, is a woman who not only changed history, but was changed by history, encountering the divine in moving ways. The Hebrew scriptures speak of Hagar as a slave woman, oppressed, abused, and ultimately cast out by her mistress. The Quran introduces Hajar as royalty, the wife of Ibrahim, who bore their firstborn son. I will devote some of the meditations to a Christian understanding, some to a Muslim-leaning understanding, leaving you, the hearer, to sort out the difference. I owe some of my insights to an extensive conversation with Mr. Reza Nakumanish of the Islamic Cultural Center of Fresno. I appreciated the time he took to talk with me about Hajar, but the representations are mine. Her regal figure bends near the entrance of her eastern tent. A platter of fruit just beyond her reach. In the midday desert heat, she lowers herself to the richly textured ground cover. Tent wall shading her repose, strands of her raven hair curled around her fiery eyes, which reveal an uncommon wisdom, having witnessed events, interpreted glances, acknowledged veiled signs. Those observing assume she is carefree, daughter of a distant king, now wife of one so prominent that all know about the promise he claims God has made concerning a lineage, the vastness of which can be compared with sands of the seashore. Yet he is without sons. This dilemma weighs on Hagar's proud shoulders as she, too, is linked with these promises. She carries his fortune and his fame, his pain, silently within her bosom. Without warning, her mind calls her back into royal terraces, gardens silhouetted against the evening sky as light fades, when there had still been laughter, harps and lutes beckoning to light-hearted dance. But it's complicated. There is another woman in her husband's life, a wife from his own ancestry, Sarai, one who does not acknowledge her or her rightful place. Peace is often marred by petulance and disdain, bringing unsolicited tensions into their active desert life. She has been nurtured with grace since her birth, choosing deference but never subservience, patient pondering over impetuous indignation. She listens for the sounds of the night, sweet relief from the unrelenting duties and disputes of the daytime. Invitation for solitude, silence, away from condescension and comparison. These times allow her the solace of her own memories and dreams. Each star calling her to reach, believe, consider her place as vital on this pilgrimage. This time, this darkness envelops her own blackness in love and protection. She is secure. She is now with child. This one who shares her own body is the firstborn, hers and her husband's. This wee one shall never suffer the humiliation her rival heaps upon her. This lot of contempt will never weigh him down. He shall not live in the cauldron of accusation. She will give her own life in exchange for his well-being, should the need arise. Feather-like, her hands rest upon her belly. Her own warmth invites one tiny foot to stretch to the periphery of his cramped incubator, meeting her maternal nurturance almost imperceptibly, but unmistakably. Her face softens, head lowers as if waiting expectantly, hopefully, joyfully in the dark. But her time has become excruciating here. There is no room for her or her son. Her scalding desolation must end. The woman, his other wife, lifts herself as privileged, possibly so saturated with self-loathing that all she can do is project evil condemnation upon her. Sarai must never have felt the peace of inner tranquility, never welcomed fiery serpents of humiliation, disappointment, fear as teachers of the soul. Never tarried in the darkness where lessons are learned, lessons of wisdom. Wiping glistening drops from scorched brow, she inhales deeply, reaching into her own soul where treasures lie hidden, once more finding refuge in the still, simmering nighttime air, sweeping arid sands. Bother to consider Hagar, a little-known figure of ancient times during Advent. She is neither offered a voice in the prophets of old, predicting the coming of a Messiah, nor does she inhabit the Christmas narrative as we repeat it annually. It seems Hagar was called to live in a cramped space, dwelling with the other woman of the man whose child she carries. Needless to say, the family situation held enormous tensions. Hagar has known the meaning of the arid desert, waiting, bearing misunderstanding and grief. As such, she is in solidarity with the mother of Jesus. Both were subjected to harsh treatment from the outside. So it seems appropriate to think about the family environment we will need to navigate throughout the Advent and Christmas season. How difficult will this be? Are there things you bear alone, away from the glare and others' stares, remaining undetected, you hope, within your own soul? All is still. Not even cattle stir in midnight's blackness. She glances nervously left, then right, pulls the tent flap open to reveal 1,000,000 diamonds on their velvety playground, twinkling at each other as they observe her silently. She carries herself royally, a shapely form next to the young child at her side, their hands securely interlocked. One brilliant jewel upon heaven's canvas nudges the next as if to say, there they go, brave woman of the darkness, finding her way now with her little one. We will watch over them until we hand them off to our sister sun with a warning to be gentle on these precarious travelers. Under this vigilant choir of silent minstrels, they set out, their noiseless steps resolute, undetected, rousing neither human nor beast. The journey is terrifying, tedious, without promise, yet with unfailing assurance that they are not alone. She never has been, and she feels divine presence even more profoundly in the inky velvet of the deserted sands. They begin to stumble. Night turning to day, then night falling once more, water and sustenance gone. They crumble to the desert floor, utterly weary, too distraught to feel anything but anguish. They are alone. She and this child for whom she now bears the full weight of responsibility. Delirious with dehydration, her thoughts turn dark, sullen. A sense of abandonment drives talons of despair deep into the flesh of her battered heart. The sky turned dour smothers her with a blanket of despondency, pressing heavily upon her solitary form.
Hagar, where have you come from? And where are you going?
Hagar's disheveled head remains motionless. Her fevered body pays no mind to this certain delusion. Where can she find water to replenish her peeling leather flask, long empty in this merciless heat?
Hagar, where have you come from? And where are you going?
The voice persists.
Hagar!
A hand rests on her sunken shoulder. She awakens as if from the dead. She lifts her stained face, eyes still closed.
Hagar, you are not alone in this harrowing place of death. the withering wind of this bleakness does not have the final say. You and your child will not die in this place. For behold, the stream that will sustain you and him will be enough to nourish generation upon generation. You will live and see promises fulfilled. I see you here.
You, she breathes, you have followed me to this place. Your promises are unshakable, for you are the God who sees. The darkness. Mary Magdalene. Who is she? She's sometimes labeled a sinful woman of the streets, a deeply tormented soul from whom 7 demons fled. Could she have been the domestic perfectionist Martha's sister? Or is it actually she who said to Jesus, "I believe you are the Christ, the Son of God who is coming into the world"? She was the one who waited and wept at Jesus' burial place while it was yet dark, wasn't she? The first witness to Christ's resurrection, the apostle to the apostles. Scholars tell us that throughout history, the interpretations of religious heavyweights have kept Magdalene hidden in the dark, fearing her authority and centrality in Jesus' life would get out of hand. Come with us as we catch a glimpse of Magdalene. It's nighttime. that time when limbs feel covered in sand, thoughts have stalled out above amorphous nothingness, much like the mighty eagle soars, then plummets towards the earth beneath, heart-stopping free fall. Floating in this thin space where ethereal touches tangible, where the other side makes contact with mortals, she sees more, senses the invisible, communes with the immortal one. This liminal place magnifies the grave peril just beyond the privacy of sheltered sanctuary. The place where she is assaulted, where people point, call her names, shun her for her sins, hide their faces because they say she has demons haunting her soul. She feels the sting, the agony of being set apart by her gift, her keen awareness of powers of the empire, these beasts of injustice that rock her world with such violence that it takes all her strength to keep the light on. It's here, alone with wisdom in this blackness, feeling her own hot breath as it connects her with the divine, caresses her with the searing kiss of the eternal fire, sufficient to garner shreds of hope to help her remain. It is here, alone in the dark, with nothing but the reminder of her beloved, that her vibrancy is restored, her hope renewed, her peace fortified, empowered to take another breath, then another, and another. She can live. Hour after wakeful hour, she watches the sky for signs of meaning, yearning for understanding of this colossal loss, this violent ripping of flesh from body, their failure, her failure to secure his mission. He is dead, gone. Her colliding thoughts ricochet from the corridors of the cold mind while it is yet dark. Whether she is blessed with a moment of sleep or becomes distracted by a dazzling star, she cannot tell. For when she turns, she sees a light blindingly vivid, coming from where he had been placed. Hardly daring to move, yet driven by some force beyond herself, she rises, then runs towards the light. She turns. Breath comes in jagged spurts, propelling her towards those she knows, loves, and with whom she shares a common belief in his truth. He's not there, not where he was laid. The words clatter from her lips, and even she cannot fathom, she cannot believe what tumbles from her own mouth. They peer at her with vacant, weary eyes, their matted and unruly hair cluttering their minds with sleepless nights, all of that driven her to despair. But her words carry the weight of urgency, so that two of them are dislodged from their place of gloom to run ahead of her to the place of the dead. The scant minute they squint toward the light reveals nothing but folded grave clothes. She is alone, yet she will keep her vigil as long as she needs to allow a healing of mind and body, soul and spirit, ligament, bone, marrow. All has been marred and torn after he had been brutally ripped from their sides. She stoops for a second look, instinctively hungering for an answer to the perplexing mystery of this emptiness. Woman, why do you weep? Why indeed? Had those who question not seen her crumpled form, mere stone's throw from this forsaken place of burial? He's gone. And who can know where to, and why, and for how long? Her voice trails off into a doleful moan. Would she slip back into the dark inner space that had defined her before he came? Would her newfound strength vanish without his steadying presence? She may not, would not, maybe could not carry on.
Magdalene.
Another voice. This one speaks her name. Only one word spoken into the vacuum of her tattered soul is enough to ignite a raging fire, illumining the black regions of her mind.
Magdalene.
This one word, her name, whispered into the stillness of the night. Its holy thunder so piercing, it releases a gush of living water into the withering recesses of her being. That moment changes her understanding of who she is, and she sees who he has always known her to be.
Magdalene, go to our loved ones. Tell them that I'm not imprisoned here, not incapacitated, not fettered to the narrow intentions of the empire's designs. I will be joining my God, your God. Go quickly, tell them.
She runs, she proclaims, she does not look back as she steps across a threshold of acceptance, embracing her place, her authority, her voice. She bursts into the dark, grief-laden room for a second time that unsuspecting morning. They are just as she'd encountered them some time ago. Shoulders hunched, the occasional hushed voice, eyes swollen. Her interrupting presence annoys them. Now even more so, as they nurse their wounds, overwhelmed by pain. Her presence arouses old skepticism in those who had labeled her utterly irrational, once demon-possessed. Her mission propels her forward. She has seen him, truly had a face-to-face with him who had been executed. I have seen the beloved, really seen him. Some stare, mute. Others sneer. A few lean in, squinting curiously at her in the darkness that seeps slowly away. I have seen our beloved in the garden, very close to where his body was laid before the Sabbath. He spoke my name. Her voice stops abruptly as she recalls that singular moment of glory, no longer shackled to her former self, forever given her voice, her calling. They talk amongst themselves, questioning those who had run with her to the place of the dead. They had not seen him. Voices become louder until the stridency of one voice rises to overpower another. Her first-hand experience now secondary. Listen to me. They argue how this could be, how the two who went earlier would not have seen him, why this message would not have been given to reliable witnesses. Anger smolders within her bosom, every cell of her body activated by an invisible electricity, emboldened by the very scent, his scent, that still clings to her being. You can continue in your denial. I'm going to meet him in Galilee before he returns to his God and to our God. But suit yourselves. The silence that follows dances upon each surface within the room, swirls around every shoulder, comes to rest atop every unkempt head, as if they had been struck by lightning. Eyes begin to focus, reflecting a newfound knowledge so deep that it defies logic. She had seen him. even one person other than the Holy Beloved to tell her with conviction, I believe you. Imagine how her nights may have become serene, sleep slipping to cover her body like a welcome hymn, instead of replaying the strident voices pummeling her with loud insults, projecting their own insecurities upon her in place of a holy benediction. I believe you. Even though I can never walk where you walked, Magdalene, I cannot see what you're privileged to see, feel with the intensity of a seer as you do. Still and always, I believe you. When others point, call you names, vociferously commit to keeping you labeled beyond the grace of God, not bearing God's image, being less than, unworthy, evil, or dangerous, I believe you are equally loved. If you tell and retell yourself a story inside your head, a story which seemingly has no one ready to listen, no one offering so much as a word of encouragement, when everything within you says, they won't ever believe me, please know that regardless of what is in your future, I believe you. The world needs your story more than anything. Our troubled existence needs Magdalens to speak their truth, to rise up next to us and with ringing or faltering voice showcase the beauty of diversity, beauty which reflects a creator of love, calling us to see more, imagine more, be more, include more. Imagine Magdalene. I believe you and all Magdalens who've traveled before us and who come after us. Please stay. Breathe. Hope. Pray. Reach. Imagine. the divine. Mary, Jesus' mother. All who have come in contact with the Christian faith or experienced art know something about the Madonna, Jesus' mother. But who is she? Was she a guileless virgin, a humble servant, someone who never questioned but fully submitted? Was she a passive, behind-the-scenes person? What impact did her proximity to divinity have on her? If you're curious, I invite you to read the Gospel and find out for yourself. As you may suspect, I try to look behind the scenes for what is not written, since biblical scholars, writers, have mostly been men. And I begin most of my musing with the question, what does it feel like to be them? I did the same for Mary, and concluded that for someone with as much strength to speak up and risk as she did, and for someone to make damning statements about Roman domination as she did, there must be a bigger picture. I believe Jesus would not have been the Jesus we have come to know without Mary's profound influence. Come with us. She leans her head against the doorframe of the house, stooped beneath a heavy load of laundry which had dried in the desert sun. She is spent. Days are now a whirlwind of activity. She has little time for the frivolous things she'd come to treasure before she was promised in marriage to Joseph. After dark, she collapses onto the edge of her bed, staring into the dazzling nighttime sky. Her mind is conflicted, excitement mingled with anxiety. Her face turns suddenly, startled by an otherworldly blow coming from behind her left shoulder. Mary. The sound of her name startles her. But the words spoken after her name, how can words be both soothing as honey and terrifying as an invading army threatening all that had ever been familiar? She trembles, shrinking back. She offers the only appropriate response. Yes. Alone once more, she sits as if fossilized, unable to grasp the message given to her. No sleep comes to her before morning light begins to creep over distant hills. As if roused from a prolonged, agonizing dream, her mind becomes alert. She had given her consent. If simple acceptance of a prediction could be classified as such, would she? Could she have said no? Her shoulders shake as if chilled, almost as if she hopes this shudder will shake off the tumultuous thoughts that now plague her. She must find a way forward, for now there is no turning back. She had agreed to the impossible. She thinks of Elizabeth, her cousin. Warm embrace greets her in this welcoming place. Somehow, a startling, mighty pronouncement comes from deep within her own soul. Words sputter from her lips. Tears flow as if they had been stopped up since birth. How? How could this be? She feels cornered, trapped. How can her God drop an utterly daunting, life-altering mission right into her lap? She is hardly more than a child herself. She weeps, she laughs, she speaks freely within this comforting space. Her bitter venom spewed at the absurdity of this message is absorbed without question. Her fear of what this will require of her acknowledged with no judgment. Day gives way to night, then sunlight creeps back into eastern sky again. She loses count of how many times this cycle repeats. Nor does she understand how it happens that her heart becomes calm. Over time, the gift of space to breathe, reflect, and heal open a deep pool of serenity within her soul. Seasons come, change, repeat. She begins to comprehend that she is carried. She will always be carried. She inhales sharply. The first intense cramps remind her that they did not find shelter one moment too soon. Shelter. That's really all that this is, she mutters under her breath, her sweeping glance taking in the shabby walls which surround her, the rickety beams that keep the roof on. Nearby, she sees their weary mule pacing, probably hoping for his hay. But there's no time to worry about that now. She can only hope Joseph will tend to him. It's her firstborn, though she has been in birthing rooms countless times. This is what girls and young women do. But this is her firstborn. As the discomfort deepens, her breathing increasingly labored, she cannot think about the myriads of firsts she's been through since the terrifying visit when this birth was announced. She must focus, breathe, close her eyes, and try with all her might to relax into the static pain. Her efforts prove futile. Her brow becomes moist and furrowed. She wishes her mother could be here now. She would bring the steadiness of a seasoned midwife, giving firm instructions, supporting her lower back, swiftly reaching for a blanket. Did they even think to bring an extra blanket with them? is not here. Mary reaches for Joseph's hand, finding it clammy and shaky. His eyes are wild with fear, and she tries to smile, not because she finds his agony amusing, but in the desperate hope that whatever strength she can muster in this moment will be enough to sustain him as well. The first cries coming from this tiny newborn are very much like those that have pierced midnight hours for millennia. But this time, it's her child, her firstborn. Mary has no time to sort through the mental cacophony which threatens her equilibrium. Now is not the time. She will ponder another time. She doesn't know when. She must tend to her son, this squirming, slippery piece of humanity. Joseph, she calls, directing her voice towards him. Bring me the lantern a little closer. I can't see in the dark. Suddenly, light is everywhere, though it comes from a single humble flame. Mary's face glows as Joseph mops his brow with the back of his quivering hand. He is here. Her voice is resolute. She is entranced in this sacred space, her eyes sparkling with newfound wonder.